Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Link Live. My name is Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive. And I'm here with my very esteemed, very smart looking in their new glasses staff. So if we want to go around.
Hi, I'm Brielle. I am the Associate Editor.
And I am Mackenna Morales, and I am the Assistant Editor.
And I feel very left out. I feel like I need to wear my driving glasses because I don't have glasses on. But you guys both look so cute in them. So happy Wednesday, everybody. Today we are talking about L.I.N.K Educate, which is the new professional development podcast series we created on Supply and Demand Chain Executive. It is in honor of our 20-year anniversary, which also go to sdcexec.com and find out all of the wonderful information that we have. Brielle actually just posted this great history of the supply chain. It's this great digital map. Oh my God, it'll blow your mind. I was like so excited about it. But you learn about when, the first forklift was invented and kind of how the evolution has happened in the supply chain. So it's pretty cool.
It's on your homepage right now.
So on the homepage, just go to sdcexec.com right now, but still watch us. So back to L.I.N.K Educate. So this series includes interviews with supply chain students, young professionals, veterans, professors, and they all talk about, the evolution of training, recruitment, retention, the evolution of education in the supply chain overall. With COVID happening, everybody kind of all of a sudden decided to be a part of the supply chain industry. So whether you entered it as a 35-year-old or whether you entered it as a student, or whether you're a professor who is now, your whole world has been upended, not only the evolution of the supply chain, but now you're probably teaching from your home because everything is based on e-learning. So Brielle and Mackenna did a great job of sitting down and doing a bunch of interviews with these, which are podcasts, but then they're also being turned into, some are being turned into videos. So we're very excited about that. So make sure you go to L.I.N.K Educate in our video set or our podcast section on our website. But let's start out with Brielle. Let's kind of kick things off with you. What are some things that you learned from your vantage point based off of the folks that you talked to?
So I didn't really talk to any professors. That was mostly Mackenna. I talked to a veteran and a student. And I think through the discussion and this time period, a lot of it was focused on how there's going to be a shift in people gravitating towards the supply chain, which I think is really interesting. With Cindy Bolt, we discussed how technology is important in the supply chain, and how women are becoming more of a presence in the supply chain world, and that's great. Especially, we have that new award, so I think what's really interesting is the new gravitation towards young people trying to get into the supply chain and how that's most likely going to be more common because of the pandemic. That's what a lot of contexts were saying, that it exposed how essential it is. And with things like this happening, we had the recession a long time ago, and now we have COVID-19, and people are going to be looking for more essential jobs. And with the pandemic, it's kind of exposed that, spotlighted that the supply chain is really important and is an essential job.
And you brought up a good point. It's kind of brought the supply chain industry to the forefront, making it, kind of more attractive. And I know, Mackenna, you sat down with some young professionals. What are some of the things that these young professionals are saying that prompted them to be a part of the supply chain industry?
So it's like a common consensus with every person that I talk to that's like 25 and younger, that the supply chain, that they didn't seek out the supply chain kind of found them in a sense, which is what happened to me too. And when I was talking to Nick Curtis, he was saying how his degrees in business, and he took a class in supply chain when he was in college because it was just a requirement. And he was like, oh, this is fine. But now he has this job in the supply chain industry and that he can't see himself doing anything different. Well, I think that that's what a lot of colleges are doing. Like when they have their business degrees, they make supply chain management or intro to supply chain a prerequisite to further on in your degree. And it's an introduction class, but the supply chain is in every single industry. So that is what Rachel Bennell talked about, because her degree was in finance and now she is getting her master's in supply chain management, and she likes the data and analytics side, and she said how it works every part of her brain.
And that's interesting because in the couple of link lives that we had with Terry Esper from the University of Ohio, he mentioned how, you know, these students who major in like finance and business, you know, you need that aspect to be a part of supply chain. You know, it's not just manning trucks. There's so many different levels and layers to the supply chain. So you could still be a finance major and then, you know, help become you know, the financials of a large corporation is managing, you know, their supply chain. So,
right. And another thing that I learned in these interviews, and also with our pros to know of where are they now series that are on our website, they talked about how much marketing relates to the supply chain. And I would have never thought that. And they just really nailed the head, because like you cannot sell your products without it being marketed properly. So you have to have that good relationship with your marketing team.
And that's interesting because, you know, marketing, they don't always think of that either, but, you know, supply chain is the place to be. You know, back to this map that Brielle put together on secexec.com. You know, in looking at the timeline overall, you know, what did you learn from doing this project and what does it say for the evolution of the supply chain professional?
Well, I think, you know, there's always the number one thing I was thinking when I was putting this together, I was like, wow, this is just patents and inventions. So I think that goes to show how important technology is. I mean, 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, the cotton gin was first invented, and you know, we were laughing because we remember that in high school and stuff like that, but it really was important. But to them, that was new technology. So if you look at the timeline, it's really just a lot of different technology. And the very last thing I have on there is a new a warehouse that JD.com has in partnership with a robotics company that's pretty much human workerless. And we're seeing a lot more of those come out, and it's not like completely ubiquitous. You know, I have a podcast coming out about the drones, or I just launched a podcast about drones in the warehouse. And while it's like not everywhere, it's becoming more integrated, and it just shows how futuristic the warehouse and logistics project or sectors are becoming. So I think that's super interesting. And I think, yeah, technology is a huge part of this supply chain industry specifically. I mean, technology helps lots of other sectors, but I think in the supply chain, it's a big deal. And it changes, I think it's going to change what the actual job is. You know, if you're a worker in the supply chain, it definitely is going to change who's coming in as an executive and as a hands-on worker. But I don't think the technology is ever going to make it so, you know, you need like a special degree to handle this certain equipment. I think it's still, you know, if the technology companies keep the user capability in the forefront, then I think, you know, it'll still be able to have that blue collar feel, but just be an easier job and attract a wider range of people.
I agree with that. Technology is really going to be the thing that like entices people to join the industry. Just look at like the blockchain bros that really hype up that technology, and that a lot of people are getting degrees in that, and like software engineering is a huge thing, and it's going to really get the younger generation to join, because we've mentioned this on previous Link lives. And then I said in my podcast with Justin Goldston that my dad worked in a warehouse all his life, and he would always tell me to never work in a warehouse because once you start working in it, you'll never leave. And that's like not the right mindset to have with this, because warehouses are important. They arguably might be the most important part of the supply chain. And because that part of it isn't the sexiest, that technology will help with it, and it'll help people get in the warehouse more, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll, the more automation, the less wear and tear it is on the body.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a main reason why people have been avoiding jobs in logistics and warehousing, because it's a physical job, and the more automation comes out, the more helpful that will become on the human body.
Right.
And I know that we've talked about it in others. I know, Brielle, you've written about it too with robotics. That there's that stigma that, a lot of these warehouse workers are almost, petrified for their jobs because more companies are implementing automation and robotics. But, we've published studies on it. I know, Brielle, you've done reporting on it. I know, McKenna, you have too, where, some companies are like, look, we're not bringing this in to replace you. We're bringing this in to make your life better, to make your job easier. And, you have a spot in this company. It's just, this is going to take care of all the redundant tasks. And maybe you're working in a below zero temp, freezer. This will help all that. And when I was looking at your map, Brielle, the one that with the assembly line, I think it was from Ford, correct me if I'm wrong. And it showed like the first like kind of assembly line. And I just thought that was cool because to some degree, that may still be how it looks, just with technology embedded here and there. And I think that, you step back from a minute at a different angle, Ford really kind of stepped up with the PPE, they've done a lot of things when push came to shove at the beginning of the pandemic. And so there has to be some kind of technology in there to help them. But at the end of the day, I mean, I would imagine that some of that still has to be somewhat manual. So I would imagine what that looked like even today in comparison. So I just thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, there's always going to be an element that needs a human brain. But then also, if you just look at the investment that it takes to get rid of your workers, to have robotics, it's rare that companies are going to make that huge of an investment. So I think it's definitely going to change. And I think COVID's impact on the supply chain and exposing how essential it is and how everyone's going to be looking for essential jobs. I think there might be a shift. Instead of us looking for workers so much, I think it might be a little more competitive, because people are going to be flocking to it, and because there is now automation. So you do need somewhat less workers than we needed, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. But it'll be interesting to see where the executive and where the hands-on workers, career will end up in the next couple of years.
No, I agree. And, I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but we did launch our Women in Supply Chain Award, which is in our September issue, which will be revealed. Our overall winner will be revealed along with all the other winners at the end of the month. Yay, very exciting. I know, McKenna, you've been instrumental in helping get that award off the ground because you do manage our awards sections of our brand. So what do you see as the future of the supply chain professional, with it being women and men supporting those women?
I think we're going to have to start implementing it at a younger age and really having those STEM conversations when girls are in middle school, or even when they're like freshmen in high schools, because like when I was that age, I could not care about math or science. And I wish I could tell my like 18-year-old self, like, you're gonna write for a trade magazine and you're gonna like it. But I think just telling girls at a young age, and just having that education and conversations with them, that is the general consensus that I got, that you have to start young.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I know that when you talk to all these universities, like they're starting to implement more of those programs so that, not just women, but just, the youth in general have opportunities to, learn more about the industry and take advantage of it. Even at high schools, I've seen, even with like engineering departments, they're starting to kind of branch out and include more supply chain focused, logistics focused aspects to it.
Right. And what Terry said a couple L.I.N.K lives ago is that like representation does matter. And when you have a professor or a teacher that looks like you, that resembles you, you're more likely to pay attention in the class. You're more likely to follow in their footsteps as well. And just like thinking about it, I never had a math teacher that was a woman ever. And so
Really? I did.
I was gonna say, I think I had a couple, but I couldn't tell you their names.
no, I never had one. And that's all throughout high school and all throughout college. And if I did, I probably would have enjoyed math a little bit more. Maybe. Math is hard.
I just don't enjoy math at all.
But seeing people that are like you, that will make a difference as well. So as more women join the industry and if more women decide to teach the supply chain at colleges, then more women and minority students will be likely to join.
I think, yeah, and I think it even goes beyond the professor thing. I think if, more women are in the field and are talking about it, and it's not just like a hidden thing, like us, like we're always talking about how we're women in the supply chain and we like our jobs and we do these Facebook Lives and we talk about it with, in our personal lives. And I think if more people are like that, then yeah, I think we're going to see more and more women in the supply chain.
And you have to be accessible about it too. Like there's women in supply chain days at certain conferences, but you can't go unless you pay a fee for it. Mm-hmm. And that's hard.
Not everybody has that ability. Yeah.
Right.
That's where the gap comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really limits people because that like those sessions probably really furthers your professional development and you can see these people in action and you can get motivated that way too. And if you can't feasibly pay it, then you're just blocking out a whole group of people, which is not fair. Right. That's just like life at this point.
Right. Well, and I think the evolution of that also has something to be said for the men in the industry. I've been a part of supply chain for, close to 9 years, but I've been in B2B for 14. So it's like, I go to these trade shows and it used to just be me. And I would look around and it's a bunch of men. And it's like that everywhere. I'd go to conferences, it's like that everywhere. And I'm starting to see that evolution where, a lot of these men are being more open-minded or more supportive, and they're really cheering on, their female partners. And that's huge because, we need that and they need that. And I think that they are starting to see the value in, hey, we're not trying to steal your thunder. We just want to work side by side and share the table with you. And right. So, that's important too for any of these men leaders and the professors to understand that, they can still be relatable. They just have to be able to understand how to relate and let them know that, hey, there's a seat at the table for everybody. We just have to, we all have the same common goal. We want to make the supply chain industry better. We want to make the technology better. We want to make the world a better place.
And something that I really like over the last 2 years of being in the industry is that the first year that I went to Modex, I went to the Young Professionals night, and I was 23 or 22 at the time, and I was the youngest person in the room by like 15 years. And so it was hard to talk to people. But then when we went to Modex this year, there was more and more people closer to my age. And it was such like a world of a difference, minus the whole like pandemic, but just seeing people closer to my age, that it made it more relatable to a point. And it made it more exciting.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I obviously wouldn't have thought of that. So I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think the industry as a whole is doing a much better job of being all inclusive, but I think it's also doing a better job of making sure that, they're making others more aware that, hey, the supply chain industry has existed for many, many years. It's just, it brought a pandemic to make it more attractive because it is filled with essential jobs. And it is filled with jobs that have different layers and aspects to it. You can still do your finance major and get your finance degree, but be a part of the supply chain. You can, still get your marketing degree, but be a part of the supply chain. So I think, and that's some, same with sales, same with business, anything. And, what's exciting about these women winners that we've had for our women in supply chain is that they have all created something, done something, made a point to stand on a stage and let people know, hey, be a part of it, be a part of this industry, and let's move forward together. So I'm excited for that.
That was something that Felisa Higgins said. This is the most recent Link Educate podcast that went out. She said that your work matters. And I almost cried when she said it to me, because I felt like she was speaking right to me, but she was talking in a general sense. And she's right, because the supply chain is one of the only industries that impacts every single person across the entire globe. So what you're doing every single day truly does make a difference, even in times when there's a pandemic and civil unrest and just hurricanes, that your work matters right now. And if you didn't do your job, it would significantly disrupt another person's life.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Which, speaking of, when you're on our Facebook pages for both food logistics and supply management executive, make sure you check out our events page. Mackenna will make sure she gets it updated. And because we have some wonderful guests coming up talking about, natural disasters in the supply chain, talking about supply chain trends and technologies and sustainability, and all kinds of wonderful things coming up. So make sure you check on those events so you don't miss our Link Lives going forward, which is every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central. While you're on our website, sdcexec.com, right there, front and center, is Brielle's History of the Supply Chain. Make sure you visit our Link Educate so you can listen to all these podcasts, plus all of our other podcasts from our Link. They're just full of wonderful content, and we try to touch all the different areas of challenges, problems, solutions, everything that impacts the supply chain. And while you're on our website, make sure you visit SCN Summit, because September 29th is our next one, focusing on in-store versus automation. And we have some speakers from Walmart and from Halltail, and just a bunch coming up. So make sure you register so that you can listen in and watch all 4 sessions. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for all your hard work putting together Link Educate. I think it was great. I think the content was wonderful and really resonates with everything that's going on in the industry. And make sure you tune in next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central for Link Live. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.